You may think I'm a dick for saying this, but ask dumb questions, get dumb answers, I guess. Alright, first thing today, depth push-ups. I really like doing something like this. The same way I like to do some sort of box jump or explosive movement before I do my Olympic lifts. This basically is the same thing as doing a box jump, but it's just for the shoulders, chest, arm, more of an upper body. It's something that's neglected a lot by people who train to be more powerful and explosive. They always focus on the legs. The muscles in your upper body can adapt the same way the muscles in your lower body can. So doing stuff like depth push-ups, explosive push-ups, drop push-ups, whatever it might be, those are ways that you can kind of build up that power and explosiveness in the arms, the shoulders, the chest. And it's a great way to just kind of warm up before you do any kind of upper body pressing, or even like on a day where you're going to be doing jerks. You could do some box jumps. You could also throw in some of these, but they're great. The idea here, same thing as like a depth jump. Start on top of the box, you drop down, you hit the ground, you try to throw yourself back up as hard as you can, kind of use that elastic strength and that rebound out of the bottom, the same way you would for a depth jump. And then you would start off like the progressions on this, I would say like do 3 to 4 weeks of just an explosive push-up. So you start on the ground, you'll just do a push-up and then land on top of the boxes. So think of that as like a box jump for your upper body. And then after about 3 to 4 weeks of that, you do 3 to 4 weeks of a drop push-up. A drop push-up means you start on top of the boxes, you drop down, and then you just complete a push-up as fast as you can without jumping yourself back up on top of the box. And then a depth push-up, which is what I'm doing today, you start on the boxes, drop down, and then you explode back on top of the boxes for that. So the difference between the depth, or a drop push-up and a depth push-up, is that you're just returning back to the top of the box versus just doing a push-up on the floor. So I got 5 sets of 3, I've done a couple sets already, so I got a few more warm-up sets, and then we're gonna move on to close grip bench press with a board. All right, so first strength movement today is a close grip bench press using a board. This is somewhere between 2 to 3 inches. Close grip, what that does is greater elbow flexion, which means you're gonna be using your triceps a little bit more of the shoulder as well, along with the chest. Helps with kind of like that lockout strength with the bench press. And it's just another variation of bench press to do versus always doing like your competitive style of bench press. What the board allows you to do is kind of overload that movement a little bit, where you're not going to be going through full range of motion, and that way you can kind of stress the muscle, stress that movement a little bit, maybe do weights that you normally wouldn't be able to do for the same sets and reps. So it allows you to get the volume in at higher weights, which should translate over to you getting a little bit stronger on that. Think of it as it's like a way to do box squats for your upper body. So using a board allows that range of motion to be a little bit shorter, but allows you to overload so you can do heavier weights and kind of stimulate that movement a little bit. So should end up progressing into bigger strength gains. So today I have 5 sets of 3 at, I think it's 140. I'll have to double check that, it might be 150, somewhere around there. But 5 sets of 3 today on the close grip bench press, and then moving on to the accessory work with that. All right, so, okay. This is a pet peeve that I have. I'm gonna do a little rant real quick. I posted on my stories, said, let me know what questions you want me to answer. I want to do this on a YouTube video or on a podcast. And then I put the little question box up there and I said, leave your questions here. I don't know why people can't follow instructions. I mean, I know why some people can't, but one of the questions that I got says YouTube. That's not a question. That's just a word. So I don't know what that means, but I guess my rant would be, if you want specific answers, ask specific questions. If you want broad answers, ask broad questions. If you want any answer, just ask a question. YouTube's not a question. And then the reason I'm ranting is because this happened multiple times. The next question is just nutrition. What do you want to know? There's 1,000 different things that you can say about nutrition. That's not a question. So we're gonna move on. And then the next one said supplementation. Again, it's just a word. It's not a question. I don't know what you want to know about supplementation. So you may think I'm a dick for saying this, but ask dumb questions, get dumb answers, I guess. All right, so the next real question. How do you choose the right plyo exercise? Depends on what it is that you're training for, but generally you want to start off with basic and progress your way into complex. Basic would be a standing box jump or a seated box jump, and then you can progress that by doing some sort of box jump with weight, and then you could progress that by doing some sort of rebound jump, so jumping off of a box onto the ground and trying to bounce yourself back up, or even doing drop jumps. You could do broad jumps, you could do multiple bounds for distance, whatever it might be, but you want to start off with some sort of variation of single jump repetitions, and then you can move your way into bounding and multiple jump variations, and then you can move yourself into what would be like the most intense would be like the depth jumps, and the drop jumps would be like the last progression in that jump series. And usually what I do is I'll choose a movement and I'm gonna stick with that movement anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks. So if I'm doing box jumps, I'm gonna be doing some variation of box jumps for 4 to 8 weeks. And I'm gonna keep that same variation each week throughout. So if I'm doing seated box jumps, I'm gonna do seated box jumps for at least 4 weeks, if not 8, and just try to progress that as I go. So maybe the first 4 weeks, I'm just doing with body weight and I'm progressing the height of the box that I'm jumping up to. Maybe the next 4 weeks, I drop it back down and then I'm doing seated box jumps with weight, and then I'm progressing the weight that I'm jumping up with. And then I might change it up to standing box jumps with a counter movement. Same thing, body weight first, and then add a barbell or some dumbbells to it. And then I might change it to broad jumps for distance, so like 3 to 5 consecutive broad jumps, even single leg broad jumps, however you want to do that. And then I might progress it into some sort of like altitude drop or depth drop, and then progress that into a depth jump or a drop jump. And then again, I mean, that right there is 20 weeks of plyometrics. If you start with the seated box jump for 4 to 8 weeks, standing box jump 4 to 8 weeks, bounds for 4 to 8 weeks, altitude drops for 4 to 8 weeks, and then depth jumps, drop jumps for 4 to 8 weeks. I mean, that's an entire year's progression right there.